Oh man. Hey folks, welcome back. You're listening to Blammo. I am your host and loyal companion. It's Jeremy Kirkland. It's me. Did everyone have a good holiday weekend or just a good weekend? Everything work out okay? You eat some hot dogs? Any of that stuff? I don't know. I can't even see if you're saying yes or hear you. But I was in Kansas City, and KZ it's a great city. It's a great city. I mean, I've been to Kansas City a bunch of times. But I don't know. I was doing a lot more. I got to cruise around a little bit more around the area, and it's a great city. It's easy to get around. The food's great. The people are great. Even the farmers markets. I mean, they're all great. It's I would say, like, as far as the Midwest goes, Kansas City is a really nice blend of folks because you got all these people wearing Royals gear. You have also a lot of people wearing these like shirts that say like "Made in Kansas City." It's kind of like some hometown pride. Then you got your workout wear folks. Then you see some dude wearing like Jun Takahashi, and you're like, whoa, okay. Then comes some older dude, and he's rocking like Laura Piana's Summer Walks with like pleated shorts, and you're like, okay, respect, dog. And then also there's a good amount of like cowboy boots, which I know some folks are going to at me at because it's not a cowboy town. But I don't know. I love some good Western wear. I mean, cowboy boots, they're kind of dope. Look, I have a pair. They're not that good. They're not as good as the stuff my guest makes, but I mean, nowhere near as good, right? But I always think it'd be really epic to kind of go back in time and you go get some cowboy boot fits off with Robert Redford. You know what I'm talking about? You'd be like, yo, dude, let's get the crew together. We're going to start a film festival, whatever that is. But that being said, my guest this week is bootmaker Graham Ebner. So, Graham, I mean, as far as like the bespoke craftspeople or artisans, whatever word you want to use, he has become one of the most talked about and hyped artisans the past few years. He's a team of one, that's right, one, making bespoke boots by hand in his small workshop in Austin, Texas. And he's just, happy-go-lucky, peachy keen, Graham just sitting there, one click, one hammer hit at a time, and just making boots. And it's funny because like, I have, over the years, I've also gotten to, be a little bit adjacent, seeing all this kind of hype of people talking about this guy named Graham Ebner. He's really awesome. Then you have Peter Middleton of Wythe, who's wearing Graham Ebner's boots. You got a few other folks. He's done a few things on TikTok here and there, and it's been awesome to just kind of watch him start to really embrace being the full-time bootmaker. As an aside, he worked at the legendary Texas Traditions, which is like under Lee Miller. I mean, and that's like if you're going to get into bootmaking, it's like the Mount Everest. There's nothing better. But it was cool to watch him because I remember he like opened his books. So we'll talk about this, you'll hear it on the pod. But if bespoke makers will have like their books open, like their client books, and he opened it up and it filled up like 2 minutes, and his boots are not cheap. And so it's just awesome. I'm always absolutely overjoyed when you get to watch craftspeople that are doing their thing. They're doing their thing in the U.S. and they're doing good. So it's just awesome. So Graham talks about bespoke bootmaking, working at the legendary Texas Traditions, why he takes things slow, dealing with waiting lists, and we talk some classic cowboy style. One other kind of almost trigger warning at the beginning. There is a bit of discussion. I mean, we recorded it at night, and you'll hear because I left it in. But we do talk about parenting and the fact that we talk about like tragedies of parents and deaths of parents. So if that's a thing that you don't want to hear, you can skip it. But it's in there. I think you should listen to it. It's a great chat. But without further ado, here's my chat with Mr. Graham Ebner. Let's dive in.
Anyway, my wife was out running around, and honestly, this is kind of the perfect time because there's nobody in the shop, and I don't really have another place to do it, so this worked out like perfectly.
Yeah, no. It's to be honest, I like night recording. It's more my vibe. Like I'm awful in the morning, and it's tough because anytime I record, if I'm doing remote sessions with like people in Europe, and it's like, yeah, we'll do the latest we can do is like the afternoon hour time, which is like 6 a.m. here or something. It's a slog, man. So you're in good hands.
No, this is I mean, I figured with kids that you might have to pick and choose your time.
Yeah, it's weird. So I was at my brother's baptism, older brother's baptism. And it was, I don't know. It's weird. I think since my dad died, like there's this, everyone's, I feel like in a way to grieve. There's a desire to just kind of like reconnect or re-understand like stuff that he cared so much about. And so
I get that.
I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't think previously I would be like at a baptism before recording, but here we are, man. I was there. We did it. Took some photos. Everyone cried, whatever,
Yeah. I had a complicated relationship with my dad for the last decade, and he's been gone for just over a year now. And, I have found myself in that exact same position a few times, just like kind of reliving some things that I wouldn't have found any interest in beforehand, or at least not for a long time, just to like maybe understand some different things about him and that sort of thing.
Right?
It's weird.
Like, I think that's a thing, and we don't have to get too deep on this stuff, but like, I think that's this thing that clicks when it's a combination of getting older and developing like an empathetic relationship with parents versus, versus just like, oh, you're the adult, so you know everything. And now it's like, no, I'm an adult too, bro. And like, yeah. I don't think you do. And then you have this weird,
I've seen behind the curtain.
Yeah, right. And you're like, oh my God. And then like, at least for me, I'm a parent, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And then I'm like, oh shit, that was them. And then I'm like, oh no, I was too hard on my parents. And then you feel bad. And then like my dad's dead now, right? And so then I was like, well, shoot. Yeah. Like I was going through stuff, and I found an email that my dad sent to me. And it's the only time my dad was like super encouraging, loving guy, in hindsight, sure, an amazing relationship, but there were little cracks here and there of me just being a little shit.
Sure.
And he like called me out on some stuff, which he was completely right on. And I like tried to big dog my dad, and I was really cruel. I was really, really cruel. And I basically said in the email that like, I don't need you. And I realized how mean it was. And then I was like, oh my God, I was like, I don't think I ever apologized to him for that. And I was like, shit. And I even told my mom, I was like, I wrote this awful thing. And she was like, yeah, like your dad loved you. Like you're good. Like,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, like it doesn't. But I find myself in this thing now where I'm like kind of in this weird zone of like, do I need to care more about these things to understand him more? Do I, it's just this weird headspace you're in. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I forgot that. I mean, this is a whole new thing for you, or a whole different dimension to this for you being a dad. But like, Father's Day last weekend.
Yeah, dude.
I have hated Father's Day for a very long time, and I was at this. I'm like a member of this like co-op wood shop, kind of like a maker space, and I was up there and I was working. And I just like kind of remembered that it was Father's Day, and it just like totally like in a moment, just like totally changed the entire tone of my day.
Oh, negatively or positively?
Ended up being pretty positive.
Okay.
It wasn't going to go either way necessarily. It was just kind of like I've been kind of big on like redefining memories when it comes to my dad.
Okay.
Because like, who the fuck is there to tell me that I can't do that? And like I'm an only child.
Yeah.
He like his personality was very apparent to most people, good or bad. And
what do you do?
Like for a living, he did a lot of things. When I was a kid, he was a photographer.
Nice.
And did like kind of like Nat Geo sort of stuff and nature and national parks and whatnot. His big thing was he did these portraits of Houston from the same spot, like the same roof, the same building, at the same time of the day, on the same day of the year, every year for like 10 years. And it was like a photo of the Houston skyline. And that was kind of like his big thing. Then after that, he like went to work for some like litigation consulting firm that just like sucked his soul dry my entire adolescence. And then one day he just like, and he was making a shitload of money in the 90s. And one day he just like up and quit, and then just kind of like I honestly like bounced around. He wanted to be a psychologist,
Sure.
and he was working at the Apple Store and worked at Brookstone, and just like I'd like go visit him at work at the mall when I was in junior high and stuff. Anyway, yeah, he did a whole bunch of stuff, which was cool. You know, he was always very encouraging for me to like do anything. He might have ought to have put a little bit of a leash on it at some point and figured it out, but at the end,
hindsight, you're like, I don't know if they were all right up there.
Yeah. He was a lifetime learner, a lifetime student. Is like he was basically in some form of school for like the last 25 years.
In actual school, or just like finding ways
like
to challenge himself?
No. Like in actual school, like taking online classes at like he wanted to be a psychologist, and then he wanted to be some sort of like counselor, and he wanted to go back into the ministry wanted to go into the ministry in some way. Yeah. And so it was just like, even when he died, I had to email the school.
Oh, Jesus.
I can't remember the name of it, but like one of the big, like kind of online, like Christian universities, I can't remember the name of it. And I had to email him and be like, hey, he's dead. So like, you're not getting any money, and like, don't sign him up for classes, I guess. Yeah. And they were like, oh shit, sorry. But it's like, okay, he's still doing, he was like 70.
Oh.
And, maybe I respect that about him, I guess. It's like he never did anything but exactly what he wanted to do, which, there's something to be said for.
I think, first off, that's great. And thank you for sharing that, because I think, as you get older and we all kind of like revisit some of these memories, it's interesting because I said like good and bad at one point, and I don't think that really exists. Someday I might have the same memory and feel good about it. And then another day I might have that memory and be like, that was awful. And you're like, wait a second, which one is true? And it's like, well, none of them are true, because it's just like how you're in your head, you're trying to define truth. Like I've even found myself going full Brian Williams here. And I was telling my daughter that my dad cooked all the time and made eggs. And my mom was like, your dad made eggs like twice. And I was like, shit.
You just gave a little more value to those couple of memories.
I know. And I was like,
they stood out more.
I was like, my daughter's Harry. I was like, yeah, Harry. I was like, yeah, my dad would make eggs all the time. And my mom was like, no, not really. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, but who cares?
Yeah. And that's the thing. It was just like, it doesn't matter, but like in my head, I was like, oh, should I be mad? Should I be happy? And it's just like, you know what? Forget it. And it's just, I think it's great that you have some memory, and I think as you evolve, you can figure out the good stuff and the bad stuff you want to magnify. But just knowing that, like, it sounds like you were on good terms when you.
Well, I mean, the short of it is,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like my folks split up when I was really young, and I have like a tremendous, like I could spend a million years talking about how great my mom is, and my dad was good, and he was around until he wasn't so great later on, and just like a bunch of stuff blew up. And then, so the short of it is, we didn't talk for a long time. He behaved in a way that just I maybe didn't agree with. And so he got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer about last April, I guess, or maybe last January, but I found out about it last April, April of 2023. And my uncle called me, who is really his best friend, but is like, been around. They were best friends since kindergarten.
Older uncle, older brother for him.
Yeah. Well, they're not blood related, but they were best friends since kindergarten. Okay. And so he was like my de facto uncle. And he was like, hey, I know you're not talking to your dad, but he's going to die, so you should call him. And I was like, okay, well, I've been, like, my dad was a pretty hard living person for his whole life. And I'd been waiting for that call for like 30 years, honestly, like since I was a little kid. He had multiple heart attacks and all these surgeries and stuff like that. And so I don't know, there was just something about it. And I thought about that moment I had thought about that moment a lot. Like, if I ever get this call, what am I going to do? Because I'm an only child. I don't have any other family up there. He didn't have anybody. I was like, am I going to go? And like, so my uncle called me. He's like, hey, dad's dying. I was like, okay, well, I guess this is it. I guess I'm going. And it was just like, I gotta do it, and just kind of like lay down my pride for a little while and go help and do what I can. So it was a just excruciating process of going up there, coming back home, and then going up there kind of for the long haul till he went. And it was terrible, but and it was interesting in a way because we kind of got to like reconnect on a different level. Like we didn't talk about anything that happened before, honestly, because I don't think our viewpoints had changed on it, but we were like, fuck it. Let's redefine the last little bit of time that we have together and like go get these really good donuts at this place in Oregon.
Dude,
go get some barbecue or whatever.
That's the thing, because like, so, I mean, I moved back to St. Louis, during the pandemic, and I was like, yo, like Dad's going to go soon. And I'm like, I don't know if I got a year, if I got a few months. I don't know what the situation is. My life was a shit show up in New York at the time with the pandemic and everything. I mean, people, we're leaving our groceries outside like every other idiot, like whatever it is, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's there. We come back, and then I'm trying to see him. And then I was actually, at one point, I was working on a show about my dad. Like, I have all these recordings because he was a preacher. He was a musician. I have terabytes of audio of my dad. Like, you could make an AI.
I've heard you mention that before.
Yeah, you could make like an AI chatbot with how, and so it's good and it's bad because he can't speak anymore. I mean, he's gone, right? But he couldn't, the last few years, he couldn't talk, couldn't do anything. It was mumbles, it was whatever. And I was like, well, I can still like listen to him, and I'm like having this weird relationship. And I was trying to find all these ways to like fix mistakes I had or to create this new, put a bow on it, right? I'm just like, hey, I'm back. It's going to be like big fish, and I'm going to fucking carry you into the water, and everyone's going to be there, and we're all going to cry, and I'm going to be, and I was pissed because I couldn't make those memories. I couldn't do it. Yeah. And then I remember, like, I've been in tons of counseling because of this. My, someone or the counselor or whatever was like, why? Like, why don't you just sit there? And I was like, oh. Didn't think.
Yeah, but that's so.
I'm just like, well, fuck you. Like, your dad isn't dying. You're sitting. And I was just like, I was sitting there, and then I started doing things where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bring headphones, and I'm gonna just put on. I got like Dylan pilled hard, and I was like, all right, Dad, we're listening to Blood on the Tracks together. And like my dad had heard it, like a gajillion times. And I like put on headphones with him, and he can't really talk. And we just sat and listened to music. And I was like, okay, now I have some memories of just like doing shit, And like that's the thing versus, oh, you know what? The son came home and he said he was sorry for sending a shitty email. And then you held hands and you drove off into the sun, And I'm just like, fuck. Like, okay, I got a memory of listening, I put, and then I'm telling him like, Dad, I'm going to go see Kiss and do this. And he's just like, hey. And I was like, okay, I'm assuming that you're into it.
Yeah. I know. Nobody can tell you how to react in those moments.
I know.
It's like, if you go back, like maybe I would change how I did it. I don't know. Maybe I have a tendency to get pretty like cold and practical in moments like that. And for me up there, it was just kind of a shit show. And so it was like, I have to get things done. Like, I don't have a ton of time. I'm like, I'm not working. I'm up here for however long. Yeah. It's like because
you're self-employed. If you're not making stuff, you're not making money in a way. Like,
yeah. And it's like costing, it's like, it's not it's very expensive to die. And so,
yes,
like the entire process, and he did like medically assisted suicide.
Yeah.
And so just like going through that whole process and getting that set up and paying for it, and all this stuff is like, you just kind of like, you do whatever you do, and you can't, at least for me, it's like, I couldn't change how I reacted to that, even if I wanted to. And I tried in those moments, but I was like, this is just me. So I guess I'm going to deal with it however I can. And then, come back to it later and process. And, that's how it goes, I guess.
And you're like, man, fuck it. I'm going to make the best cowboy boots in the entire world.
Yeah, this is a pretty sick segue. Yes, exactly.
Well, I mean, okay, let's zoom out. So obviously you have this complicated relationship with family. And in some ways, maybe only now, you start to trace how the world you grew up in and the things that were around you helped you find the passions that you have now.
Yeah, I would say that I'm really lucky in this way. So like my mom's a musician. She's a choir teacher and a music teacher, an accompanist, pianist, all this stuff. Just like huge personality, wonderful, wonderful person. And like from the time that I was a little kid, and it was just like, me and her, or even just like me and my grandparents or whatever. It's like everybody in my family was like, do whatever you want to do. Like if you want to, I don't feel like I had a thing that I wanted to be. Like I didn't want to be an astronaut or cowboy or whatever when I was a kid. I have no recollection of any desire like that, but I just wanted to be whatever I wanted to be when I grow up. And so like my mom pushed me into whatever. She was like, "Oh, you're interested in like sewing and making clothes? Like, let's do that." Like,
did you do it?
So my grandma. Oh yeah.
Okay.
My grandma's a big quilter. And so I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. And so we would make quilts. We would sew clothes. Like we'd go to the Joanne shop and I'd pick out a jacket or something like that, you know? And
so you were,
and we'd go.
Let's explain what you actually were doing. You weren't picking out a jacket. You were picking out a pattern to make the jacket.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, we like get a Burma pattern or whatever at the Joanne shop. And, the one that I remember was like, and she found it the other day and I haven't gone to pick it up yet, but I'm going to. And it's this like brown, like polyester corduroy with this like, you know, faux fur white collar. And I remember making it and just thinking that it was like the coolest thing in the world.
Bud Court and Harold and Maude.
Oh my God. Like I thought that I was cool enough to be like one of the Disney Channel kids or something because I had this just like sick jacket that I made. So I just like, you know, I play around with the sewing machine, quilt, make clothes, pillows, whatever. And then my grandpa was like a really handy person. And so we would like do carpentry or I don't know, whatever, some car work or metal work. And I got really into fixing cars. And I don't know. I've always just wanted to take stuff apart and put it back together. And I've always loved shoes. Like from the time I was a little kid, you know, it was like my grandparents would pick me up from school and we would go straight to the mall, go straight to Finish Line or whatever.
Well, what were your kicks?
And I didn't really have any money, but
yeah, me
I
either,
do remember that. Oh yeah, I was a big Jordan fan when I was a kid for a little while. Okay. So I had some Air Force Ones, and then I got some Dunk Low. I mean, I know these aren't Jordans, but some like, you know, some Skate Lows or whatever they are. I had this one pair of like red and white high top Jordans in 7th grade. And I don't remember what they were.
Big money.
I remember buying those.
Big money.
Oh, yeah. And I bought them. I bought them for my birthday with my birthday money. And I remember my friends like distracted my mom and I spent $120 on the shoes, like while she wasn't looking. And she was pissed because like we didn't spend $120 on tennis shoes.
I remember it would be like, we're not the whatever you can't do kind of family. You know, be like, we're not the spend $120 on shoes kind of family. We're not the blank, whatever. Yeah. No. Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. My shoe obsession has just never stopped. And I'm from Texas and I grew up lightly riding horses and kind of around that. And,
but that's not a normal thing though. That doesn't work anymore. I'm from Texas. I grew up riding horses.
Well, it is to me because I did, and I
think it's great. But I mean, like Texas is so big. I mean, it's always been big that like that's just not as common as what the stereotype might sound like.
For sure. I grew up literally next door to this big equestrian facility, and like I'm from the suburbs. Like I am not from the country.
The suburbs
I'm not a cowboy.
Of Austin?
Of Katy, like West Houston.
Okay.
And like I'm like very firmly from the suburbs. But, you know, my dad was kind of into horses and when he had some cash, he would, you know, that's kind of where it went. And so I was really lucky. And I had a horse when I was a little kid, you know, just kind of an old ranch horse. His name was BJ. And, you know, all of my little kid photos are like me and my dad on BJ. And as a watch aside, so my dad had an Accutron, a Bulova Accutron.
Which I saw is in that magazine cover. You're wearing it.
Dude, I was hoping somebody would pick up.
Oh yeah, I saw. I was like, shit. Okay.
I love that thing. Every time somebody asks me about it, I'm like, here, put it up to your ear.
It's listen to so cool. It is a great watch.
But yeah, it's like all the photos of me and a little kid. We're sitting on BJ, me and my dad.
Is BJ? Is the horse still around? I don't know anything about horses, so pardon me.
No. He was like, he died when he was 30. I think he was 32.
Horses live that long?
Not all of them, but yeah, it's not like terribly uncommon for them to make it into their late 20s, early 30s.
Is 32, is that like a human year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, he was an old like ranch horse when my dad bought him, and he eventually kind of like got retired to only being ridden by very small children at riding camps and stuff like that.
Right. Okay.
So put out to pasture, but not in the sense of like, you know, getting killed, in the like literal sense of like, you know, he just spent his days kind of hamming around and getting pets and stuff. But yeah, it's like, you know, the Western stuff was always there, at least in my family.
I mean, it sounds like in a lot of ways you had this, you know, obviously you're telling the story, so it's your perspective in the moment of us recording this, but like sounds like it was pretty idyllic. You know, you're in this world where people are kind of shepherding you, for lack of a better term, around things that you like, things that you're interested in, and you're getting experience in it to figure out if you still do like it. That sounds awesome. Not that like you're not allowed to have any pain or anything, but I mean that's a great story. I mean, that's wonderful.
No. I mean, I look back on that time and I feel really lucky. It's like this is something that I think about a lot now. It's like I've been married for a long time. I'm 33. I'm kind of starting to think about kids now.
Have fun. It sucks, but it's the best thing you'll ever do.
Yeah, and both of those things sound great.
Oh, dude. So there's a quote from Paul Thomas Anderson. I don't take any credit for this. It's his words, and he said this on a Mark Maron podcast. The WTF thing is he's talking to Mark about kids. And Mark Maron's like, yo, kids suck. And they do. He's right about that. And he's like, oh, no, it's awesome. And he said, having kids is like having a warm fire in every room. And I was like, oh my God, it really is. Because there is a cool thing about it. And I recognize that like it's not easy to have kids. Some people are never able to do it. I don't think everyone needs to have kids. I'm not that sort of thing. I agree with that. But there's something there. And I feel like that becomes like the next, we had the dog first and then we had the kid and then, it's so on. But like there is a bit of like happy pain that happens because your world gets flipped upside down because you have to care for something that doesn't know how to take care of itself and it reciprocates versus a pet.
Yeah.
Not that's what all I think of kids are versus some person who's going to message me and call me
No,
out,
for sure.
Like,
I mean, I like hearing that from people with kids because, there's like, I feel like to boil it down, this is a bit reductive, but you have like two types of parents. And one of them is like, yeah, it's really hard and they shit everywhere and they're, I don't get any sleep and everything's terrible. And then the other ones are like, oh my God, they're the best thing in the world. Nothing is terrible. Everything is just absolutely wonderful. I love every second.
They usually are rich people. I don't believe either of you.
Well, yeah.
We just give them to the other person and then the other person takes care of it.
Yeah, during our visitation for like 4 hours in the afternoon after nap time, they're wonderful. Yeah, of course. If I had the money to do that, this might be a different story. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I love them. It's like, a lot of my friends have kids and I do think back about that time. And I was really lucky when I was a kid to have a lot of people around that really cared about me. And, as like an only child, it was kind of nice to... I don't have to share that with anybody, it was like
that's a thing. That's a real thing,
and that was it. It's not maybe the most ideal thing when you're dealing with like death and grief and like familial responsibilities later in life. I'm finding out, but when you're a little kid and you get all your mom's attention, like it's pretty cool.
And I think you kind of age a little bit quicker, or you mature a bit quicker. Maybe is the word I would use.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
And I was super close with my grandparents, my mom, actually both sides. And I feel like my grandfathers and my grandmothers, like I couldn't rank any of them. Like they were all great and they all took a lot of time to like invest in me in one way or another, whether it was like, being creative with like sewing and making clothes or like being handy, like fixing the car or like fixing the fence or whatever. It's my mom's dad was always at the house doing all this stuff. And then my mom and I would both be out there like, oh, how do we fix this part of the fence? Or like, how do we do this plumbing thing? He was a pawpaw. Actually, yeah, both of them. I had two pawpaws.
Same.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope to be a pawpaw one day.
Yeah, my dad's dad was a pawpaw because my dad was from Victoria, Texas. He grew up on a base.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And my grandpa was an aeronautical engineer. He did like landing gear on fighter planes and stuff. And
that's cool.
Yeah, it was cool, but I mean, whatever, right? Everyone's got their ups and downs. And then my other dad's dad, or excuse me, my mom's dad was grandpa. And
okay, classic.
Yeah, the classic. But he was a guy who like, I don't think I got to know him until like a few years before he died.
Yeah,
because I don't know, him and my mom didn't get along until like his final years. And then, whatever. But yeah, the pawpaw thing, I feel like that's a Texas thing. I don't know.
Maybe it is. I never thought about that.
Yeah. Or pappy. I hear some people's like, yeah, that's my pappy. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I've heard pappy.
I never want to dunk on anyone's, doting names for loved ones.
Yeah. Yeah, but some of them are goofy. My mom is remarried, and her husband has like 7 grandchildren.
Is she Nana?
Through his daughters? No. I have a Nana. That's my sewing grandmother. Okay. She's 95. She's still kicking. She's awesome. She's like one of my best buds. We talk all the time. Anyway, my mom is a Kiki.
Oh.
And then my mother-in-law is a Cece.
Oh.
And there's something about these like high-pitched double syllable words that they both feel like makes them seem not old. And I'm like, I don't really feel like that translates, Mom, but I support your right to choose your grandparent name and choose it well.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I remember I was talking to someone who was like getting all upset about like pronouns, and I was like, isn't it like when you're a grandparent, you kind of just make up whatever name you want people to call you? I was like, can we just kind of like, yeah. And they were like, oh shit, Poo-poo. That's kind of right. I was like, so who fucking cares, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just call them that. Get over it.
Wait a second. I got to get my bids in on the Bezel app, but more on that in a minute. I get all sorts of emails and questions from you all, which I love to read and respond. And one thing I constantly get, and even read in the Blamo Slack, is what watch should I buy and where should I get it? It's a wild world out there with all sorts of websites and shops, but I go to Bezel. Bezel is the trusted marketplace for buying and selling your next luxury watch with expert in-house authentication on every purchase. First off, folks, it's getbezel.com. That's getbezel.com. But I use and recommend Bezel because it's the best of both worlds. You can go to the site and browse a marketplace of luxury watches, over 16,000 of them, by the way, which is a lot. And I know that Bezel is going to authenticate your purchase. Or you can create an account and get connected with your own private client advisor, called the concierge. Because look, making a watch purchase can be confusing, especially when you don't know all the reference numbers. When was this made? Did they use ceramic then? Is it a triple lop, dingle top? What the heck? I don't even know. But they do at Bezel, and they're here to help. Concierge, baby. Look, if looking for your watch to mark a special occasion, or maybe you're just doing research, right? They even have their own journal where you can learn all the ins and outs about Bezel and the brands and all the stuff that's happening right now. But back to my bids. Yes, Bezel now has auctions, and not just any auctions. They got Rolex, they got Cartier, they got Audemars Piguet, all the big dogs and more. So you can discover, bid, and know the Bezel team has got your back with verified in-house authentication. So visit getbezel.com on your smartphone or computer. Bezel, the trusted marketplace for buying or selling your next luxury watch. That's crazy. Okay, so you're kind of moving along, figuring out stuff you like, and eventually you double down because you apprenticed, right? I mean, you can't just go and start you don't watch a YouTube video on how to make shoes and then start selling them. I just want to be very clear here. This is not a thing that you can just do.
Okay, I feel like we need to dig that a little bit,
please,
because so I started in 2000. My first day of school is what I called it. The first day I walked in for my apprenticeship was 2017, Labor Day 2017. To Texas Traditions, which is like famous old cowboy boot shop in Austin. Like one of if not the spot to get custom boots, and definitely the place to learn how to make them.
I mean, that was
the shop's been there.
What's his name?
Charlie Dunn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like
boots for everyone.
The lore. Peter Fonda, customer number one. Anybody from Peter Fonda to Lyle Lovett, Tommy Lee Jones, Willie Nelson,
there was presidents and stuff
Sting.
too. I think,
yeah,
everybody. W had one. Yeah,
everybody. And honestly, I got really lucky. I lived across the street, and to back up a little bit, in 2015, I had a pair of Iron Rangers that I loved,
Red Wings.
And I had Red Wings, and they had started coming apart. So the insole had started peeling out of them. And at the time I was like, I have no idea what goes into the construction of a shoe or a boot. And my wife had just gotten me on Instagram. This is 2015.
Okay.
And so I'm calling shoe shops in Houston. I'm like, hey, I have this pair of boots. I want to get them fixed. Can you do this? And everybody was like, nope, not going to look at them.
Wait, for real?
It's just, Yeah. Because it was just like, Houston shoe repair or whatever. And I told them what was going on, and they just wouldn't touch it. And I don't know if it's because I was just like cold calling them, and they were like, "Oh, this idiot doesn't know what he's talking about."
Yeah, okay.
And I started getting frustrated because I was like, "Man, I love these shoes, or I love these boots. What am I going to do?" I was like, "Well, yeah, I can figure this out, right? Surely it can't be that hard." So I just got on Instagram, and I found this guy named Brian the bootmaker, and for the next like 2 years, I basically just poured over his Instagram. And at the time, he was doing like mostly repairs and like, tear downs, relasts. He was pulling out, toe boxes and this kind of thing.
Because I think he was like a TikToker first, no? Or no. TikTok wasn't even around. You're right. Okay, never mind.
No, it wasn't around. Yeah, he was a sneakerhead, and his story is really cool. I haven't met him, but we've got some mutual friends. And next time I get out to LA, I'm gonna try. But he just like wandered into a boot repair shop and kind of did the same thing. Like, hey, can you sell me some stuff?
Yeah.
And ended up just like, honestly, starting this really beautiful relationship with this guy who had the shop, who taught him how to make boots. And, now he's killing it. And so he was posting all these videos and or all these photos of like, hey, here's how I'm tearing this down. Here's how I'm prepping the insole, And there weren't a lot of other resources. So like at the time, I couldn't get on YouTube and be like, how do I prep an insole to make a pair of boots or whatever? The only things that you could do were look at these like ancient footwear manufacturing books on some of these decrepit old shoemaking forums, which are still out there and like still a good resource, but like not practically speaking for doing stuff at home. And then Lisa Sorrell, who was like a very famous cowboy bootmaker in Oklahoma, had a YouTube channel called It's a Boot Life. And she's doing kind of the same stuff that Brian was doing, just much more in depth and specific.
Yeah.
And her videos, especially her early ones, are really funny. They're like half lifestyle and half like cowboy boot.
Well, it is a boot life after all.
It is a boot life. I mean, like, yeah, it's in the title. I don't know what I expected.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, maybe I can figure out how to fix these. And if I can do it, if I can fix this pair of boots, and I had one other pair, like maybe I can find somebody to teach me how to do this. Maybe I'll be interested in it. And this is kind of my MO. And my wife gives me a lot of shit for this, because she's like, you just get interested in something, and then it's like, I do a deep dive.
Yeah.
Whether
Hi,
it's
my
like
name's Jeremy Kirkland.
Motorcycles. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have not helped my watch addiction. You and a few of my customers.
Yeah, that's fun. You just kind of get nuts.
Yeah,
I'm always like, I'm not hurting anyone. You're like,
kind of. I'm learning.
Yeah,
I'm a lifelong learner. I enjoy it.
Yeah. So you go to Texas Traditions, which isn't really. Right. Can you even do that? There's not a thing on their site that says like, go click here to be an apprentice.
They don't even have a website. I don't think unless it's recent.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, because it's a very much. I didn't hear about Texas Traditions until my friend Dan Copps, who is he's Lance Panda on Instagram. He's the source of anything crazy. He's just like, he's had everything. He just, and it's not like he's just some tasteless guy. I think his taste level is on a level that is like unparalleled to almost anyone I've ever met. He just knows cool stuff. And he had turned me on. It explained me, because he has boots made by, oh shit, I don't know. He'll listen to this and be like, you idiot, and text me up. He's got crazy custom stuff. He's got all sorts of gear.
Okay.
And he explained to me about it. But yeah, because otherwise I don't think many people know, which is why I was trying to really emphasize Texas Traditions, because it's like the equivalent of, wanting to make cool American muscle cars and you work at Shelby. I mean, that's where you start
that's exactly
out.
right.
I mean, it's just crazy. So continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So I really looked out. I like lived across the street, and I was like, having this moment. I was like, I want to fix this stuff, and I got on Google Maps and it just searched boot shop near me, and I called the first one that came up, and I was like, I had never heard of them before, and I like knew that you could get custom cowboy boots made in theory,
in 10
but
years.
I never thought about it. Yeah. But I never really thought about it, and so I was like, well, whatever. I'll call them up.
Sure.
I called them and ended up just like hitting it off. And long story short, it's like they let me come and start working there, a couple afternoons a week, kind of sweeping the floors, doing basic repairs and stuff like that. I was working at a coffee shop and a motorcycle shop at the same time. And
as one does.
As one does. Yeah. I was like, I think my life could have gone in one of two directions. I was working at a coffee shop, and then 2 afternoons a week, I was going to the motorcycle shop. And then 2 afternoons a week, I was going to the boot shop.
Man, thank God you didn't get into meth. I mean, you're just like dabbling. How do I become the best at everything? Heavens.
And it just like at a certain point, I was like, man, I love doing this, and I think I have a knack for it. And so I stuck it out at the boot shop, and I worked for free for a long time, and then I worked part time there. Yeah. And it's like you start doing repair work, and you get a little better, and you start doing some like full soles and heels, and then I start doing refoots, and then doing like the really involved repairs on boots that are like 20, 30, 40 years old. It's like I worked on some that were made in the late 70s, like in the first few years of the shop.
Wow.
And they would come back, and it's like when you first get into raw denim and somebody's like, oh, I've been buying Levi's, but now I'm going to buy a pair of whatever's. And, they're 5 times as expensive, but they're going to last me 5 times as long, and I'm never going to have to touch them, and they're going to last my entire life or whatever. So justify the price. And you're like, well,
like cost per wear. I swear to God, the person that says cost per wear, just push me into oncoming traffic, please.
Yeah. It's like, I just like nice stuff. Okay. So I'm going to buy some expensive jeans.
Thank you.
Like, let's just be honest.
Yeah. Just be true to yourself.
And so it's like, with custom or handmade boots or whatever you want to call it, with nicer stuff like this, like they're going to last a lot longer, and they're not going to last if you just like step into them every morning and step out in the evening every day for 70 years. Like that's not going to work. It's like, you have to take care of them. You've got to fix them along the way and care for them. Mm-hmm. But, being that they're made well from the beginning, you can do that. Like you can take those moments to fix, this little piece here or there, or like replace an insole or whatever. And then maybe theoretically have the same pair of boots your entire life, but they've been gutted a few times. Anyway, so it's like I was working on these pairs that were coming in from seriously like 78, I think 79. Wow. And this is 2017. I was like, man, this is incredible. And I'm like, I love old stuff and old Western stuff, and I like Westerns, and I felt like I was in a movie, It's like, this is the coolest thing.
What goes on in the shop while people are working? Is it the radio? Are you listening to a song? Is there any water cooler talk? What is it like? Because those guys are lifers.
I mean, when I was there, for the majority of my time, there's Lee and Carlin who owned the shop. And so Lee was one of Charlie's apprentices, and Carlin was one of the early employees. They fell in love in the 80s. They got married. They bought the shop, and they've had it ever since. 87 maybe. And so there's Lee and Carlin, and then there were 3 other apprentices there. And me and the other apprentices we're all about the same age. And so it was just like, I don't know. It was like having 3 sisters, I guess. Like, we just kind of like ribbed each other and like, made fun of one another and gave Lee a hard time, and listened to a lot of KUTX, which is like this really awesome radio station that we have in Austin. And Lee is a big guitar and like early rock guy. And so it would be like, I don't know, Eric Johnson would be playing on the radio or on the stereo like all the time.
It's like Cliffs at Dover or something. Is that Eric Johnson? I don't know. That may be Joe Satriani.
I'm not really sure. Whatever. But it was like there was great music playing all the time. Yeah. And I feel like my current music tastes were really formed by being there, and getting introduced to a lot of that kind of stuff. But it was a great place. It was a great place to be, especially at that time in my life. It's like I couldn't have gone anywhere else and learned to make boots as well as I did. And it's like, I know a lot of bootmakers, and I have respect for all of them. Everybody does it a different way. Everybody thinks their way is the right way.
Oh, you mean?
But everyone
stubbornness and
it's like everybody's yeah. What ego?
What is this?
But it's like everybody's accepting of that. It's like we get around. We get
part
together.
Of the joy of getting anything made by an actual artisan. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you pick up stuff from your friends. Yeah. It's like, like a lot of my bootmaking buddies. It's like we'll be working during the day, and I just like have my phone on speaker. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing?
Really?
They're like, oh, I don't know, I'm like cutting vamps out, or I'm crimping, or I'm building heels, or whatever. And I'm like, oh, are you doing it like this? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, that's a terrible idea. That's going to fall apart, right? And they're like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's just back and forth all day. But at the end of the day, it's like, I don't actually think that. We're just like,
yeah,
it's just like kind of a part of our little weird subculture of cowboy bootmakers, which is a bizarre thing.
So if everything's so good over there, why do you piece?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it boils down to I turned 30 that year, and I wanted to make some more money.
Yeah.
And I just like needed a change. It's like there wasn't any there wasn't anything bad. It was just like I reached a point where I needed to do something different in my life, and I wanted to see like what I could do with these skills that I had. Yeah. And I'd been there for 4 years at that point.
So PhD has been given to you now, basically.
Well, it depends on who you ask, but I felt that way. And it's like, but I was making new boots. Yeah. It's like the way that shop worked is somebody would come in. It's like, okay, let's say you're up. You come in, you get measured, you talk about what you want. Lee measures you, Lee builds your last.
Crazy.
And then maybe you pick a stitch pattern, or you're like, oh, I want some inlay or whatever. And he does some artwork, and then he would pass it off he would pass it off to like me or one of the other apprentices, and just like, go for it. It's like we knew what to do. Mm-hmm. So maybe like I would do the top work and then finish them out, or like one of the other folks there would do the top work and pass it to me, and I would do bottoming and finishing and that kind of thing.
He's still making everyone's last?
As far as I know. Yeah. I mean,
that's
I don't
crazy.
Yeah. But it's like, that's the point. That like, that's the thing. I get it. That's why people go there.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you're right. Wow.
It's like, you're not going to pay, $3, $4, $5, $10,000. I was going to say,
I think they're like $10K boots or something now. I don't know what
but when I was there, their base price was $3,000. But that's
nobody's
like,
getting 3,000 boots if you get a Texas Traditions appointment. Yeah.
No, that's a plain boot. That's like no stitching, no toe flower, no nothing.
No one's getting that.
Why would? Yeah. Well, actually, that's not true. Really? There were some people who would get them, but maybe not for their first pair.
Oh,
it's like, okay, I've got 3 or 4 other pairs. These fit great. Most of the customers are older.
Yeah.
And like, I need something nice to wear to court or whatever, because I'm a lawyer.
Sure.
And I don't want anything fancy. So like, make me a pair that like kind of passes as a dress shoe.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But yeah, it's like, the first like insane pair that I worked on were for the folks at Tabasco, like the man that owns Tabasco, Edwin McElhaney. And they were full alligator, and they just like had Tabasco logos all the way up the side with all these images from Avery Island all over them. They were absolutely gorgeous, really bizarre. It's a weird thing, cowboy boots in general with that kind of stuff on them. But and I think I don't know, maybe I did like soles and heels or bottoming or something like that, finishing. I can't remember. But I feel like that was the first like insane pair that I remember for my time there. And I was like, wow, you can like, there's no limit to this. Like, you can take this and do whatever you want with it. Like, this is just a canvas at this point.
It is. And I think like, cause there's a couple things I want like people to understand too. For a lot of people, first off, like getting a cowboy boot is like, oh, can you not hear me?
Oh, I can. Sorry. Somebody was walking by.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. But like for like a cowboy boot, getting a pair is the equivalent, especially like a custom cowboy boot, is like the equivalent of getting like a bespoke suit made. Like it's such a kind of Mount Everest of achievements. It's not like buying from X brand that makes in X place. Let's just not trying to shit on anyone, but it's not like a one-click thing.
No, it's just different.
Yeah, and for my dad, it's funny because for my dad, that was like his idea of wealth, and like you made it, to air quote, was cowboy boots. And I remember,
really,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, dude, serious. I have some of his boots, and it's funny because as he got older, he got frustrated with, because it's a pain in the ass to put on boots, to take off boots, you know,
for sure.
And he got boots that were cut. It was like a chukka boot. It was a boot with the heel and the toe and all the things, and then they were just cut like, but not a roper. You know what I mean? It was just
wait. You mean like they cut the tops off, or they like cut the instep, or put a zipper in, or what?
They just it would be like a 12-inch or whatever, 14-inch whatever pair of your boots, right? But then they're cut to like 4 inches. It's like a low top.
Oh, like a little peewee kind of
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so he was
Yeah.
just like, yeah, because I'm tired of trying to put them on and off. It's funny because I had to go to my mom's house to like start to pull some things out of his stuff. And I told my mom, I was like, I want Dad's boots. Like,
oh yeah,
he's like a size like 7. You know, he was a tiny foot. Yeah, he's a little. Whoa, I mean, he was not a. You know, I don't know. He's 5'7", 5'8". You know, I'm like 5'11" or whatever. But he's. You know, he had these boots, and I remember him telling me, he's like, boots are so incredible because you could just do whatever you want with them, but no one knew but you. And I think like that's the thing, because I feel like if you get a suit and you get a bunch of weird dumb stuff on the inside of your suit, because you know I remember like getting a bespoke suit and they were like, yeah, but the linings, you can get all this like, and it was awful. All this stuff, it's like you want to put gumballs on the inside. It looks like a candy machine. I think that's, you know, if that's you, whoever is listening to this, go off. God bless you. I love it. But eventually you're like, I just kind of want to have a little bit more like classic stuff. But with boots, for some reason, it's always okay. You get as loud and as crazy as you fucking wanted to put on that boot, and that makes you 1,000 times cooler, and it's just for you. It's your own little hidden fun house secret inside of your leg. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't think there's any other type of garment, shoe, you name it, that can be as crazy and as refined simultaneously. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's part of why I love it. It's like, I think that I could have ended up doing a lot of other different like creative things. Some days I wish I was a shoemaker or a tailor or something like that, you know, and I can just like really get off on the like, you know, more technical, tailored, you know, smart side of it.
Well, so are you done? Is this it? This is your final calling?
Yeah, this is my retirement speech. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, like, do you see yourself doing shoes forever or doing boots forever?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea, man. I'm taking it like 1 year at a time. I take maybe 6 or 7 orders a year right now. It's like I'm a one-man shop, and I also like, I love making boots, but I want to do some other stuff. It's like I want to like maybe expand a little bit and do some accessories, and who knows in the future, but I want boots to be a part of that.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know what all that looks like, but that's part of why I didn't. Yeah, it's like I enjoy being creative. I really love kind of being in this space, and especially the last couple of years, I've met just a lot of people that really encouraged me and inspired me. People like Peter Middleton at Wythe.
You made him a bear.
And I did. Yeah. I remember so I met him when I was working at TT, and I was sitting on my bench working, and somebody walks in. I look up, and there's this guy, and he's wearing a white tee. He's wearing blue jeans that are cuffed like 8 inches.
He really loves those big cuffs. God bless him. Love it. Only he can do that for some reason. I tried it. I looked like a buffoon. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's not going to work for me, but he can pull it off, man. Yeah. And I was like, who is it? And he was wearing a felt hat with a flat brim.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, who is this guy? And we hit it off, and we've been buds since.
That's great.
And I've just really been inspired. Like every time I talk to him, I feel like I kind of leave with a new idea or some excitement to try my hand at something else. Which is like being a part of this industry in whatever way that I am is like, this is the highlight of my life at the moment, you know, and has been for a while. Like meeting creative people who love clothes or who love, I don't know, to be creative with the things that they wear or the things that they make or whatever.
You mean people who make a living off of their creativity, which it sounds like is what you're pulling at. Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's like I've met just so many kind, encouraging people throughout this. And I hope that I relay that on to other people that I am meeting that are just getting into this. But yeah, I hope Cowboy Boots I don't have any plans of stopping. But I'm also, you never know. You never know what's going to happen.
Well, sure. The world could blow up tomorrow. I mean, that's, fine, fair. But I think
I guess I should say I'm leaning into it. Man. Like I'm making boots. I have a lot of boots to make over the next few years, and I don't have a plan of stopping. So I don't want anyone to take that as like, get your foot in now.
Well, no, but I think that's part of the journey. I think especially once you start to get custom stuff or bespoke stuff, and those are two very different things, at least for me. But like if you because like for you to order a pair of boots, you're making a last for that person, no? Or are you doing empty?
Yeah, for sure.
So this is this is not yeah, I'll see you in 2 weeks, sort of thing, from start to finish. What is it? A year and a half, 2 years, 1 year?
No, it's like from well, it kind of depends on which way you want to look at that. But let's just say, for example, like I opened my books up last October, I think.
Yeah, it was filled up pretty quick.
Yeah, and which was great for a person who's making their living off of the people who signed up to order boots in that day. Like I had a great day. But yeah, so you sign up, and then generally from that point, it may take a few months to like kind of get to your spot in the queue. But from the time that I like measure you and then build your last and start cutting, then it's like maybe up to two or 3 months. It just depends on what it is.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so it's like I could pick my craziest pair, and I might have like 225 hours, 250 hours.
Is that how you kind of build and price your stuff, as you think of your hour and what? Yeah.
It's like I have a base price, which is 6,000. And that includes, like kind of what your traditional idea of a cowboy boot, like fancy stitching on the tops, 12-inch tops. And it's like the leathers could be anything from like calf to kangaroo to pig, water buffalo, something like that. Just anything that's non-exotic. A toe flower, and then we'll choose a style of toe and a style of heel.
Well, that's good. So it's not like
different stuff like that.
My base is 3, but you basically don't get anything.
No, exactly. And I was really specific about that because most shops are like, oh, my base price is $3,000, and you don't get anything.
Yeah.
And then by the time you build a standard classic cowboy boot, you're at like $4,500 or $5,000.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but I feel like it's a little misleading. And I wanted people to understand that like, if you want a pair of boots, then my base boot, and this is it, it's got stitching, it's got the toe flower, it's got kind of all the standard accoutrement, it's $6,000. And if you want something different, you want inlay or you want flowers, or whatever, then, I'll knock a little bit off of that and then build up from there.
Right. Yeah, because, I mean, you've had stuff where people are getting exotics. People are, I mean, your work is incredible, but it's there's the stuff that you're doing. It's definitely like a fun factory in there with, snakes.
It's weird. Yeah.
It's cool.
But that's what I like about it. It's like, I love making cowboy boots, but this is an answer to your earlier question. When I left TT, I wanted to see what I could do on my own, but I was also really particular about what I was going to do. So like, I don't want to make just like anything that comes in the door. And like kind of my boilerplate explanation for this is like, I don't want to make Dallas Cowboy boots. If somebody walked in and they're like, I love the Cowboys, like so like I would really love to make boots for Post Malone at some point, right? It's like if he walked in and he was like, hey man, can I get some Dallas Cowboy boots? They're like, nah, sorry man, not happening. Like that's not my thing.
Right.
There's a million custom cowboy makers who will put like a brand or a logo.
There's not a million, but I don't think there's that many, but sure.
There's not that many. Thanks. But what I mean. And that's just like not what I want to do. Like I want to use cowboy boots as a medium for like creative expression with like illustration and texture and design. But I also want to use it as a way to like enjoy kind of those like technical aspect of footwear making, from building the last to, prepping your insole and welting and doing soles and heels and finishing and that sort of thing. And I don't think there's a lot of mediums like that where you kind of get to express in both ways. And that's my favorite part about making cowboy boots. It's like, it doesn't really matter what's on the tops. I'm going to have a great time because I get to do all of it. It's like, I get to have fun and like maybe do some fancy stitching or like inlay some armadillos getting blasted by a UFO with magic mushrooms. And then I get to like really nerd out on like doing fractions for building my heels or whatever.
Sure. I am curious, like how, so as a person I've had bespoke stuff made for me with various from footwear to clothing, and it took a while for me to learn what a true, air quote, bespoke process was. In the sense that you realize that, one, it's a mild tug of war between the creator and the client, and that's okay. That's part of the process. Yeah. And you have to figure out a definition of what is fit with that person during the entire process, because for me, and I'll just use clothing for a second, like how I want something to fit versus how like a person's house style is, right? There's certain tailors I just don't go to because
Sure.
their house style is different than what I like about fit. And it's fine. That's kind of how it works. But I think if you're really early and you get a ton of cash or you're just ready to throw down, there's a bit of a learning curve that I think many people have to go through, which is like understanding what fit is with the person that's making it, and also knowing that like this is a process. And you know, with footwear, especially because everyone's feet are just all over the place. They're weird. Your feet are weird. You're hobbits. You're not a hobbit. You got a big instep. You got a low instep. You got flat feet. You got, you know, fallen arches. And you are in the position where you're basically making a slip-on. This is not like an Oxford or, you know, or even like a Derby, which is like a very forgiving shoe depending on someone's, you know, instep or foot width. You kind of have to like nail it. So how do you walk people through that process of like, hey, okay, wait, you've never done custom footwear ever before and you just cut me a check for this? What are the things you have to tell people to get them, you know, down to reality?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that, because like I have an idea of fit in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you walk in and I shake your hand and I look at your feet, I'm like, okay, I want these to fit like this on Jeremy's foot. But maybe you have an entirely different idea, right? And like that's half of my job, is to figure out like, well, I need to do this in the way that I think is appropriate. Like I'm not gonna, if you walked in, you're like, I want to be able to kick these things off at the end of the day, like fling them across the room. It's like I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to make you a pair of boots that kind of go against everything that I don't want to say stand for, but like I want to make them properly.
Yeah.
You know, I want you to get your money's worth, and like it's important for me to do a good job. But there's a middle ground, right? So one of the big things is somebody will come in and I'll ask them like, hey, have you worn Cowboy boots before? And most people say yes. I have one person on the list this year who has never had Cowboy boots before. I haven't measured him yet. I hope to, but that was kind of mind blowing to me. Most of my customers, I think, have never had custom Cowboy boots. But have worn boots at least off and on for a while. So they have an idea. They're like, I don't want them super tight, or I want them really tight, right?
Yeah.
I like my stuff really tight. I use a boot jack at the end of the day.
Do you really?
I want them to fit snug. Yeah, because like it is a slip-on, right? And so like it's kind of a two-dimensional fit.
Can you explain to folks
like
what a boot jack is real quick? Sorry.
Yeah. So boot jack is this like little forked wooden or metal shaped device that you kick your heel into and you step on it with your other foot, and it traps your boot and you pull your foot out of it. So instead of leaning over and pulling your foot out of your boot, you stand up and you pull it right out. It makes it easier, especially if your boots fit really tight.
Yeah.
And I like my stuff tight because it fits better. Because there's this relationship between like how good your foot feels inside of the boot and how snug it fits your foot.
Yeah.
And if it fits your foot snug and you don't have a lot of movement in your heel, then most of the time they're going to be kind of difficult to get off. It's not a bad thing. It's just a personal preference. But like me, my feet swell. So at the end of the day, if I've been wearing like my normal boots and I've been like on my motorcycle or like in the yard or whatever, my feet swell a lot. And it's like, I have a hard time getting my boots off.
Wait, hold on. Wearing your boots in the yard?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like, I have like a kick around pair.
Hell yeah. Wow.
That I wear most days.
Okay.
And they've been gutted and rebuilt a couple of times already, or at least once. And I love them and I live in them. But my feet swell. And so it's like, I can't, like I had this, I was on a motorcycle trip a couple years ago and I had worn them and we'd been on our bikes all day and we were like at a gas station and I just wanted to take them off.
Yeah.
Like I had just been like, we were all just chilling there for a while. And I was like, I'm taking my boots off. Like we're going to be here for like an hour or something, just kind of resting. And I couldn't get it off. Like I couldn't pull it off myself. And I didn't bring my travel boot jack, which I normally travel with.
Your travel jack, your TJ?
Oh yeah, exactly, man. It's awesome. That's the best party. I don't want to say party trick. That'd be a weird thing to do at a party, but
I don't know.
It's like if I go somewhere, and I have my suitcase with me, then I'll like pop out my little fold in half travel boot jack, and it's a great little accessory. And I didn't have that because why would I? And so I had to use one of my buddies, and I kind of kicked my foot up between his legs, and with his butt facing me, and he grabbed the bottom of my heel, and I yanked my foot out of it to act as my de facto boot jack for the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's me, and I like my stuff to fit snug, and that's not a problem. Like that's not a bad thing because that's what I want. But some people come in and like, I don't want to use a boot jack. If I have to do that, I'm never going to wear these because I'm not going to travel with that. I want to be able to pull them right off. And it's like, okay, no problem. That's not right or wrong. That's just something I need to know. So I'm going to build them a little looser. They're going to be a little bit easier on and off, which means that you're going to have a little bit more movement around your heel. It's not a bad thing, especially at the beginning. It's like everybody's always like, oh, like heel slip, heel slip, heel slip. Yeah, that it can be a little bit annoying, but that's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like a buzzword around cowboy boots, I guess. It's like everybody's like, oh, well, if you get a custom pair of boots, like you shouldn't have any heel slip. It's like, that's not really
That's the
right.
danger of like when you learn everything on the internet at times. Like, because
yeah,
you're like, well, this person taught me. And as we were just saying, you have all these, all your boot friends have all these different ideas and you all disagree on them in a way that's loving and encouraging at the same time.
Yeah.
So who the fuck's right? So it's just like
yeah, exactly. But it's like, a cowboy boot, like it grabs you like kind of from around your ankle, like the top of your foot, back around your heel and around your instep. And that's where it holds you. Because it's like, if you look back at what a cowboy boot was meant to do, it was meant to sit there. Like you were in the saddle, in the stirrup all day long. Like they weren't meant to be a walking shoe. And it's like, obviously like, maybe the fit has changed over time and we repurposed them, but, or at least for some people.
Yeah.
But it's like heel slip is not the be all end all of a well-fitting boot. Like the be all end all is like, does it feel good on your foot? Like that's the only thing that matters, is if it feels good when you wear it, and is it comfortable, and does it give you the support that you need to walk around all day?
And you do like reinforced counters, and like because it's a last for the person's foot. Like this is not, because I think it's tough too, because for a lot of people, right, they may not have the journey where they are wearing stuff that fits, or, I remember when I would do suit stuff with people, I'd be like, okay, well, I want to explain to you what my definition of how something fits first, and then let me hear yours, or you tell me yours, because, for someone, something that fits, right, is like, yeah, but that's 10 sizes too big, or,
right.
This is, I think that's wrong, and it's tough to do that because obviously that's the person who's paying for it. But I think there's a bit of a, for most people, I imagine, that start to work with you, it sounds like you're probably going to get more and more folks who haven't bought custom boots before. So it's like, is there a boot, or is there something that you tell someone to kind of like have their training wheels or something on first to get an idea of like, well, this is kind of how it should fit? Because, if you go buy, I'm just going to call like Take of Us, right? That brand.
Sure.
Their boots are okay. Whatever. Fine. I'm not the guy, but like, yeah, for a couple $100, they'll do the job. But it's not a reinforced counter, So like someone like me, that has very, I have kind of like fallen arches, right? So
okay.
I fall inward, and you see kind of like, also I have like a little bit of a wider, a lot of times like my pinky toe falls underneath the rest of my foot when I'm wearing, stuff like that. So there's all these things. And if you're just buying ready to wear stuff and you're like, man, cowboy boots suck, I'm never going to buy those. Well, no shit, because you're wearing ones that aren't that good. So like, right. What do you tell people to kind of start with to work up to you?
Well, no one's ever asked me that before. I don't,
sorry.
No, that's great. It's great. I don't have something that I suggest to people. Sometimes I'll do a fitter. Maybe this is the best way to answer this question. I'll do a fitter to like see if we're on the same page as far as like how
like
fit
a fitting
goes.
last or a trial shoe or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like a shoemaker. It's like if you go to, whoever, Daniel Wiegand or Nicholas Templeman or one of the shoemakers or something like that, like they're never going to go straight. They're never going to go straight to finish. Like they're going to build your last. They're going to do a fitting, at least for the most part.
Yeah.
And they're going to make adjustments, right? Because it's like we all start off with this like 2 or 2.5 dimensional data on somebody's foot, right? It's like pencil tracing, girth measurements, maybe an ink imprint, and you can use this to kind of build a picture of what someone's foot looks like. But they're not sitting there next to you, and unless you have like a 3D scan, and even then, it's like you're not fitting their foot, like you're fitting their idea of fit.
Yeah,
right?
It's tough.
Somebody with a bony foot like me is a lot harder to fit than somebody with a really big fleshy foot. It's like somebody with a big fleshy foot, like you can get away with anything. Not that I would, but it's like they're going to be comfortable in something a lot more easily than somebody with a really bony foot, because that flesh is just like a nice cushion around the bones of their foot. So I'll do a fitter. So it's like, okay, most people that come in are, I don't want to say most, but a lot of people are wearing the wrong size to begin with, right? They're like, oh, I wear hiking boots a lot and I'm wearing a 10.5. And I look at their foot and I take their measurements and I'm like, you should not be wearing a 10.5. Like, you should be wearing a 12. This is crazy. Like, why are you wearing shoes that are 2 sizes too small? It's like, oh, because like I have the toe room,
Yeah.
I like to feel snug in the end. Like, okay, I understand. So you want something that fits snugly, but we also want to fit you in a way that's like not going to hurt your feet long term.
Yeah.
It's going to give your feet the ability to flex where they need to. So yeah, I'll do a fitter most of the time, and it'll just be like kind of quick. It's like I'm not gonna spend a month making a fitter just for me to cut it back apart and like recycle that insole on another fitter.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it out of like some sort of leather that's like comparable to what we're gonna use. So like if somebody wanted a pair of boots made out of like shrunken bull hide, it's really stretchy, I wouldn't make their fitter out of some stiff cowhide.
Right.
Like I would make it out of something that's similar so we can get an accurate idea of what's going to go on, how things are going to feel when they put it on. It's like I have all of these measurements and I build their last and I'm like, okay, their ball is right here and their instep bone is here. I'm going to build the last out to fit this. And then you put it on, you're like, okay, I need to make an adjustment, a little too tight here. I can definitely pull it in here, stuff like that. But it's like something off the rack. I don't know. I don't know that.
Well, I think you just answered the question by just explaining because there's not. And I think
there's not.
It's like if someone comes up and it's like, oh man, I just got my appointment, we're booked, deposit secured, and they show up and you're like, so what shoes do you wear? And they're like, well, I basically only wear Hoka's. And you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not helpful. I don't need that. I want that information. And I do ask people like, what size shoe do you wear? Like in a Nike,
what do you usually wear?
Whatever.
Yeah,
I
get it.
It's just like a good starting point, but I'm never going to like measure their foot, look at my data, and then data says I need to fit them in a 12.
Yeah.
But they said they wore a 9. I'm not going to put them in a 9. Like that's because I can see clearly how big their foot is and like where it's moving and things like that. And then like maybe I'll go back and be like, okay, like why are you wearing this? Like why are you wearing a shoe that's 2 sizes too small? Is it because you just like it tight on your toes? Yes. Okay, cool. That's easy. I can work with that.
Yeah. There was a shoemaker that I worked with at one point, not that I did business with, but I knew of them and was talking with them, and they talked about a customer who was very stubborn on their shoe size. And they were like, hey, you're wrong. And the customer's like, no, my shoe size is this. And so they say, okay. And they just wrote the shoe size on it.
Yeah, Lee and Charlie wouldn't even tell a customer what size that they used.
Yeah, he was just like, okay, yeah, I just wrote his shoe size on the thing. And he's like, I don't really think it matters because it's a custom shoe, but if you really want me to do it, fine. And so he wrote like, 9.
Yeah. And that
the guy's like, I'm a 9. I'm always a 9. Everywhere I'm a 9. And the guy's like, what? Okay, dude, here you go.
Okay, here's the 9. Yeah.
And your credit card now. It was like,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, this shoemaker is a very talented shoemaker, but I think it's interesting because there's this sort of reality distortion field that I think one has to enter to interact with a patron or a client that's going to figure out, definitely not patron, but a client that's going to figure out like how you guys can work together and make good stuff. Because I just feel like, I have a lot of friends now who are hitting a socioeconomic status where they're able to really go nuts on things. And I'm always shocked at their first responses when they do it. They're like, wait, I kind of thought it was going to be this, 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 and this. It's like, no, like you don't want that. And also part of the joy is the experience in figuring out the house style and how it doesn't fit, or working with a craftsperson who has a point of view. I mean, isn't that the whole point? Otherwise, just get a robot to make your stuff.
Exactly. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about this. It's like I wanted to define a style that allowed me to attract a certain customer. And I want people, like the people that come to me, I want them to sign up on my list because they want something from me specifically. Right. They don't just want somebody to make them a pair of boots.
Yeah.
That's not really my thing. I mean, it's like, of course I'm going to make a pair of boots for them, but I want someone who's excited. Like I want someone who is like kind of invested in my world, so to speak, because like we're going to have a better time. Like we're going to have an easier and quicker relationship. Like we're going to bond and we're going to like come to a point where we can create a design together much more easily than someone who's just like, oh, I just need a bootmaker to like make me a pair of black boots. It could be anybody. It's like, that's not my customer.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I want a relationship with people. Like if it were up to me, like I wouldn't charge anyone, and I would just make boots for people that I liked all day, or like for my friends or something, just for people that I chose.
You gotta pay for that health insurance. You gotta get by. Trust me, I know it.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah. But I appreciate that. You know, I when somebody comes to get a pair of boots from me, like I understand that they are very expensive, and it is like kind of a bizarre thing to pay like $6,000 or $8,000 for a pair of cowboy boots. I get that. But in my mind, it's like, it kind of goes beyond that. Like, it's not just a pair of cowboy boots. Like, I'm trying to build an experience for people, and I want them to leave with a piece of art that I have created that they coincidentally get to wear and kind of like live in and make memories in. And like, I get to, I make a new friend. I meet new people. It's like, I don't have any customers that have left here that I'm like, I don't ever want to see that person again. I don't ever want to talk to them. It's like, I want to text them. I want to send them funny stuff on Instagram,
right?
Or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing, and it makes me curious now, because every big brand, clothing, fashion, whatever, fill in the blank, is trying to look smaller and is trying to be actually less accessible. And I feel like because everything is so easy to get, or easy, feeling like we're in this Amazon one-click sort of world, the things that are hard to get and the things that take time, obviously there's more of an allure behind it, because, it requires hoops to jump through. But it's real, it's art, So as your business grows, do you have this desire to scale? And if so, like, you're like, yeah, you know what? It would be great if I hired, to like, are you going to start taking apprentices? Are you going to, so what does that look like? Or do you just be like, nope, it's just me and that's it. I only do this many appointments, the end.
I do want to grow. And, that is kind of a focus of mine over the next couple of years, and something I'm working on right now. I would love to have an apprentice at some point that's like, as a fairly new self-employed person. Like, I've only been doing this on my own for 3 years, and that's terrifying. Like, I can teach somebody how to make boots. I could make a really nice pair of boots. I'm not yet ready to be responsible for someone else's financial well-being. And it's hard enough for me to come in and leave at the end of the day feeling like I got everything done, much less like have somebody to teach. And spend it's like having an apprentice is a huge sacrifice. Like, that is not lost on me. Anyone who takes the time to teach another person how to do something, whether it's like boots and saddles or a tailor or whatever, it's like, it is a huge time sacrifice and financial sacrifice. Yeah. And I'm really grateful for that, for having that experience at TT. And there's a lot of people who want to find someone to teach them how to make whatever it is, and have a really hard time finding it, because it's like, it's hard. And I get people that ask me all the time, which it feels really funny, honestly, to have people like send me DMs, be like, oh, are you looking for apprentices? I'm like, are you crazy? Maybe in like, I don't know, 5 years, but no, not right now.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Because then also it's like, well, how do you scale? Because yes, your shirts are awesome. And the shirt design, I don't know who does your branding and branding design, or like all the stuff that you put. It's incredible. It's really, really, really good. And I'm kind of a picky asshole. I mean, I'll just be honest.
Thanks, man. It's a mix, I have to say. So the shirts were done by a guy named Michael Johnson here in Austin. My first shirt was done by the guy who was wearing shoes that were 2 sizes too small. His name's Stephen Wemberly. He's a designer and an artist here.
What's up?
And a really good friend.
Shout out Littlefoot. What's going on, my man?
He's gonna love that. But everything else is me. Yeah. Like, from the boot box to like business card, I don't know, all the other stuff is me. And I would love to do every bit of all of my branding and photography and website and e-commerce stuff and all this stuff. And I've been able to up until this point, with a few exceptions. But it's starting to get a little difficult to like have time to do all that stuff. But like having whatever I am, having a shop, having a brand for me has always I've always wanted to be able to use it as a way to like highlight my friends. So like I want to use this as a way to like highlight artists that I really love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Michael, I really liked his design. He has done a bunch of stuff for folks. I mean, all over, but especially here in Austin. I was like, oh man, I love that stuff. He's great with type and all these things. I really want a shirt from him. And there's, I have a list of people like that I want to work with.
That's cool.
It's like I've been working on these boot jacks for way too much time the last couple of months doing this like woodworking, and it's like I'm making all of them, and I have this wood carver in California, and I haven't yet. Maybe I shouldn't say this because I haven't actually reached out to this guy, so maybe I won't say his name.
Yeah, we'll edit that out. Amar, pull out the wood carver bit. Yeah.
But it's like I want to use this as a way to like highlight other people who are doing cool stuff, because people have done that for me, and like I love this world. I love getting to share these things with people, whether it's like Cody at Willamette Hat Company, or Peter at Wythe or whatever. And so this has always been the eventual goal was always to use this as a way to like show the people that are looking at me some other things that I like, right? Like kind of show them my little world.
I feel like that's how you know like a person is going to be around a long time, because you're not gatekeeping anything. Do you know what I mean? Like as we're talking, you're like, this person's great and this person's great. And there's other people I know in the, industry, clothing, fashion, shoes, and they never want to tell anyone that they did a good job because they're so insecure that this person might in some way infringe or eat their lunch or whatever. But when people kind of realize that, like, dude, the table's really big and there's a seat for everyone here. Like, man, you gotta just kind of chill.
There's a lot of people like that in the cowboy boot world.
Oh, sure. Guitar world. I mean, it's all in there.
Anything like that. It's like I don't abide by that. I stand behind my work, and I think if somebody wants to come up and do it better, like, you know what, good for you. Go for it. But like, I'm happy making boots. And I want other people to be happy making boots if that's what they want to do. I don't know. It's like I'm an open book. I love helping people out on their own personal projects. Like, I don't know if you've ever been on the cordwaining subreddit, but it is.
I have not.
This goes. Okay, so this goes back to your earlier thing about like finding information about shoemaking on YouTube. Okay, there are people on there, like, this blows me away and gets me so excited. Like the folks on there who are making stuff for themselves or for like the Stitch Down Patina Thunderdome or different things like that. Like, they got a day job and they come home and they're on Reddit or they're on YouTube or they're like, pulling stuff out of books, and they're sitting at their kitchen table and they're making shoes and they're making engineer boots or cowboy boots or whatever with these online resources and message boards and like really the subreddit and stuff like that. It's amazing. And they're making incredible stuff. Yeah. Oh yeah. I think it's great. Oh, I think it's awesome.
I was waiting for you to dunk on someone. See, this is how pessimistic I am. This is why I'm the asshole.
Way. I think it's really cool. It's a little frightening because I see this and I'm like, man, it took me a really long time to get good at this. And like, these guys are hopping up and they got better resources than I did when I was first starting, but I will be one of those resources. Like that's awesome. I have benefited immensely from other people in the cowboy boot world, sharing their knowledge with me. And that's been an invaluable resource. And like one of the best parts of this is just that community. And I'm not going to gatekeep that. It's like, I stand behind my work. I do good work. I'm only trying to make it better, but there's a lot of people out there who want cowboy boots, and
there really are. I mean, there are so many people that, I mean, even me, because as a part of me is like, do I get, man, I'm like, I don't know. Because I have a few other friends who work on stuff and they're like, oh, well, you should try this out or you should do this. And like, I'm kind of the person that will get, we were talking earlier about like getting really into something. Name a thing, and I'm like, all of a sudden, I get so, not that I feel that I'm better than anyone. I want to be very, very clear. I don't feel that I'm more intelligent or anything, but I don't know how to have a casual relationship with anything to like learn. Where it's like, sure,
you and me both.
I'll read that book, and then it's like, well, 60 books later, it's like, why can I not enjoy a Beatles song if I don't know exactly where the mic was placed?
Yeah, but why does that matter? I mean, I think dive in, man. Like, right. I think go deep on it.
I'm not hurting anyone, but then that becomes my justification to spend more time doing it,
Yeah.
And I'm not arguing. I'm not going to argue online. We're like, that's wrong. A smart person would
Yeah.
know that's a Stitch Blake Levin welt.
Oh man, I'm not that guy either. I have a friend who his name's Dima. He works at a vintage store here in town. He's awesome. He's like just getting into bootmaking, and he's very into vintage. He's very good at like vintage history, whether it's like military wear or Western wear or whatever. And I am not that guy. Like, I love old cowboy boots. I'm like pretty good with the history of it because it's like fairly well recorded at this point. There's been a few books that iron it all out. But I am not the guy who can give you names and dates on all that stuff. I wish I was. I'm just not. But when I see people like that who can just come in and they talk about, like, I don't know, the history of like Blucher Boot Company or Hire,
right,
or I don't know who was working at Lucchese during this time and who, like, I don't know, all this different stuff. Like, I'm decent, but like I'm not writing a book about it. Let's put it that way. But there's people that are. So this, my friend, he comes in and we're like kind of talking about boots, and he's just getting into it, and he's a younger guy, and he left, and I was like, I called one of my other bootmaking friends, just absolutely psyched, like out of my mind, because people like that, I don't know, they just like, they have this infectious energy that gets you excited about this thing that you're already spending all of your time doing. It's like, I eat, sleep, and breathe cowboy boots, for better or worse. And it's like somebody comes in and they're like, they chat about it for an hour and they leave. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm canceling all my plans for the rest of the week, and I'm living in the shop, and I'm going to make 3 more pairs or whatever. Or I'm going to draw a new stitch pattern. I don't know. But it's like, I want that. I want people to be excited about it. I don't want people to feel like there's not a resource for them to learn how to do this.
That's great,
because it only gets better when people do it.
You'd mentioned some other boots. Like, do you see yourself ever getting into, I don't know, what's the World War II boot everyone loves?
Like the Munson Last or something?
I don't know. Like a lace-up boot. Like, do you see yourself ever falling into that, or is you just kind of like, nah, fam?
No, I
Good
don't.
on you. No, I think that's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, like I follow a lot of that stuff pretty closely. There's a lot of people who make really beautiful examples of any other kind of footwear, like especially the lace-up stuff.
Supposedly Indonesia's got some pretty hot spot of like boot making with the military style shoes.
Yeah. And that's one of those things, like I'm not saying I'm never going to stay in my lane for the sake of it. But I don't know that there's anything that I could add to that. It's like I could make a really nice pair for myself. Like, I got a couple things planned for later this year that I really want to make. Like, I would love a pair of engineer boots and maybe a pair of lace-ups. I really want to make some loafers and a pair of Oxfords.
Oh shit, that's quite the list.
Just for myself.
You just said a couple. You rattle off like 6 things, but sure, yeah.
But it's like, that's for me. It's like I'm not gonna make a pair of loafers and
my
then,
fancy sauce.
Put it up. Yeah, I'm gonna buy them. Like, my dream, my personal dream, is to have a pair of shoes and boots from like a dozen different people. So like, I really want a pair of like brown suede, maybe mock toe loafers from Nicholas Templeman. Like, that's one of my tops, right? Okay. And then I really want a pair of cowboy boots from like 15 different people that are friends and people that I admire here. Like, I'd love a whole collection of all this stuff. I can't really afford to do it at the moment, but one day I will.
Yeah, I'm like that with, like, today. So I used to play guitar a ton. Now I just basically play like Jim Croce songs for my kids. But I was, very, very obsessed with, like, not just writing music, but really like having like the best guitar I could get, and learning about all these luthiers and guitar makers, and I would just go down these rabbit holes. And all of a sudden I went from, I need to buy an amp so I can just like practice scales and be a dork in here, and to all of a sudden being like, I'm gonna get a custom made. It went from like a couple $100 on like looking on Reverb to, yeah, you know what? I bet I could try to get this. It might take a year, and it's a $5,000 deposit, but then another couple years or whatever. Put another. It'll be worth $10,000 is all of a sudden
cost per play.
My cost per play. My cost per power toggle. But like it's good to know that I'm not alone in this kind of this wild, crazy,
no, not at all,
obsessed world. So
I had a customer come in last year, and He's a big watch guy, and I don't remember what he was wearing. It was a Black Bay Bronze.
Yeah.
And
fun watch.
He had just gotten it or something. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Started looking into some stuff, and then last week I'm like, okay, maybe I want to buy a full DIY repair kit, like a full Bergeron kit or whatever.
Boy.
Start like tearing apart some of these old movements that I have. Like I could get into this, right? Like I have a lot of spare time that I need to spend on this. But why not? Let's do it.
It's cool that you go the repair route and the actual creation route versus the collecting route first. Because I don't know if you noticed the contrast of yours and mine. Mine was just acquiring shit. And yours was just like, yeah, I'm going to learn how to build it. And I think that's a very different perspective of you and I. And I really admire yours, I want to say.
I want to know how this stuff works. I want to go take what is it? The New York Horological Society has some classes. Like I want to go up there for the weekend and take one of their classes or something.
Yeah. I mean, you can head over to Geneva. You go work for Patek and start making.
Okay. Calm down. Calm down.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap. Graham,
cool.
This was an absolute pleasure. I'm really glad we got to do this. Thanks for your patience in my kind of ups and downs there, but yeah.
Oh man, I've been a really big fan of the show for a long time.
Oh,
and this
sick,
is
dude.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. This was great. I hope I didn't ramble too much, but it was really fun.
No, you got to do more pods. But
okay.
It was great to meet you, man. I'll see you soon.
Later.
You've been listening to Blamo. Our show is produced by Blamo Media. We're edited by Amar Lowell, and our theme music, as always, by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. If you like what you heard, you know the drill. Share the pod with a friend. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars or thumbs up on whatever other thing you're listening to us on, whether it's Dingledorp or Bing Bong, whatever it's called. But you can also follow us on Instagram for all the hot content. If you want to talk to us and give us your hot take, we'd love to hear from you. You can send us an email at info@blamopod.com. Last but not least, super, ultra important, if I had a air horn, I would press it right now. You got to come and join us over on Patreon, because the fun never stops over there. Look, the live show, the free show, whatever you want to call this, we take breaks here and there, but Patreon, it never stops. And we also got exclusive shows like Die Workwear, hosted by Derek Guy and Peter Zotolo, and the Triple J Show, hosted by yours truly with John Moy and Gene DeLeon. There's just a ton of stuff over there. So check it out at patreon.com/Blamo. If not, no worries. We got hundreds and hundreds of free episodes in the feed and more to come. So we will see you all soon.